Second part is a consulting manual, or I call this consulting report. You see, it's a blue color right here because our goal is to generate value, to prove that we are the ones who know what we are doing, and we know how to solve the problem and how to connect the dots and how to make sense of data and how to provide solution. The overview, again, this is the structure on your left. And actually, I copy-paste the structure from the journal. So you can find exactly the same structure in the Journal of Case Research and Inquiry, and I will go through each of these points. But I also put, again, the picture of Yin and Yang because the structure and the rubrics are very much related. You see, the rigor is the rubric number 1. We look here how well the case writer, consultant, converted the story of the challenge to the synopsis. How well they can use their professional language to understand what's going on here, what's the underlying problem, what am I trying to solve. And this is where the first we tried to generate value. And methodology, if you look at this structure, this point number 3 and point number 5, they both are research methods and conceptual foundation. Synopsis, research methods and conceptual foundation, this is where you pay attention to prove your rigor, that your students are very smart and they don't speak everyday language of these entrepreneurs, for instance, is a market example, but they know how to think about this as professionals. The next rubric of the logic, and of course it goes all about case analysis. In our structure, it's point number 6. And how this case analysis makes sense of the data, applying framework, and how well you present the summary of the findings. And rubric number 3, relevance of recommendation, and it's more about practicality, action-focused recommendation and action-oriented, and what value for the client, and how well it answers the question of the case. You remember that the last sentence of the case was the question I want to answer, and this is where we provide the answers, how we present it. And this is different from teaching case, because when we work on the teaching case, of course, we provide course, class discussion, learning objectives, and then we go through question after questions as we discuss the case in the class. Let's discuss this, which is very different what is here. However, the information is very, very close. It's just placed differently and with different goal of to prove that we generate value. Again, our clients are not students, our client, or not other professors. Our client is our client. We work for this client and industry who can learn from this case. Synopsis, you see it's at the beginning of the consulting report. And can anybody say like what you see first in this picture? Can you type it right now? What you can see first? First. Superman. Bird. Airplane, bird. I see heart. And this is exactly what we first establish ourselves as professionals, and we teach our students to establish as professionals, because in every case, different professionals can see different issue, underlying problem or dilemma they want to solve. And of course, it's a mirror of the case challenge. As you can see in my picture, we work on the red color, but we looked at our challenge statement from the case, but also how we elucidate our own core, how we define who we are as professionals. And we're trying to bring this all together. Synopsis, it's a kind of summary of what was in the case, but brought together in a professional language. As I say to my students or to myself, if I present this case in a professional conference, in the industry conference, what language I'm going to use in a professional conference or in my maybe interview as a job candidate for the company, how I would define this case. And after this, we provide up to 10 keywords. Again, it's a requirement of the journal, which again, for me, it's a very strategic way, because this is where we put our stamp, who we are, and the nature of the challenge, industry, market, location of United States. And I recommend to be very strategic to define, let's say, for instance, market. We can say market as Ukraine, or we can say the country under the war. We can say emerging economy, or we can say state-controlled economy, or we can say just a country. Like, it's up to us how we define, And this is how we establish our space as professionals. And industry as well. It might be hospitality industry, it might be professional service firm, company, etc. So we control what keywords we put there. But I think it would be, yes, for our case to be searched well in the journal, but also to be searched for the area of we control as our area of expertise. So methodology, and my question is like, when you look at this guy of working on this sophisticated equipment, what is the feeling, I would say, you feel like when you see that this doctor right here, what the message we are saying? Can anybody type? I hoped you will write here that the message of we are ready to solve the problem. And we are eager because we collect data using like 10 different sources, databases, answering the Marcus questions. This is them who claim, students claim that research methods of how I collected data included 10 interviews, also big data analysis or we use big data analysis methods to understand what, for instance, what people write in social media about this or that products category. And also databases of Statista and industry data and professional journal this, professional journal that, etc. When they write this not because professor wants them, but because they want to show the client that it's not a childish student paper. They show that they are very thorough on working with data. And again, answering your question, Marco, like sometimes it depends on the case. But like one of my students, they were writing about actually my company, about BH, and I wanted them to understand what triggered international students to join BH Center for Global Talents. And they collected data through analyzing data from social media, anonymous social media amongst markets about international students. They did join their own networks, my Indian students, my Chinese students, these students, and they did data analysis. And it was amazing data what they collected. No 10K, and it was data very much relevant to my case because it was not a strategy case. Strategy case would be more about industry growth, about 5 forces, etc., etc. For the framework, it also shows that we have a toolbox. We collected all the data, but data is so massive right now. It's not a problem to collect data. The problem to make sense of data. And they must define their frameworks, what measures they're going to use. And in my cases, I very often use parallel with doctors. Okay, they can measure whatever they measure. They can have your, blood test, this test. But the point is like what the rubrics they are going to look through on your data to understand what works well and what doesn't work well. And in my book, again, I provide recommendations of 3 different sources of framework. And in our classes, obviously, we use more well-known, SWOT 2TOES, 5 forces, industry life cycle, etc., etc., etc. But especially for practitioners, or for instance, like I was very impressed with Connie presentation, what you, Connie, do right now. Maybe you don't need this kind of well-known frameworks. You can use your own specialized frameworks. And in my last class, I had several MBA students who already one of them already PhD in microbiology, and another one works in approval of drugs and regulations area. They had their own frameworks. And I said, good for you, as long as you have reference for these frameworks from your professional journals. And this is what they applied. And of course, I do not recommend for students, but for us professionals, we can actually develop a framework for particular case. And I did this in past when I worked in the country where none of the frameworks I knew really fitted. And together with the client, I developed the frameworks. I do not recommend this, but if you have unique challenge or context, it's one of the options. And again, you can find more about this in my book. But even if you follow the last one, customized framework, it's just more work, but it's exactly what we did in our PhDs, right? I developed a framework for my PhD of how to develop donor commitment for nonprofit organizations in a high trust environment. And then for other nonprofit organizations, and if I work with the challenge of how to raise funds and generate donor commitment, I use my own framework, but I refer to something. I have to prove this, that it's a framework. It's not something what you can find in YouTube in every single kind of wisdom piece. These are two parts are small, and I say like the synopsis and the ontology together goes like in one page and a little bit more, because it's mostly reference of to the framework and like listing of how we collected data. And how we collected data, we just need a listing, like, okay, and we use primary data, 5 interviews, 5 this, 10 this, etc., and how secondary data, just like list of whatever frameworks, whatever sources they used. But the larger part, of course, case analysis and recommendations. And again, this is what they must prove, that their report is worth to paying for. Because I tell them that the first part, it's actually free. You write this to develop trust and you give them to the client and the client must approve, and it doesn't cost money. This is your story. But for the second part, I tell them like, hey, don't give it for free. You are consultants, and it must be proof of your value. Case analysis have 3 parts. The first is the problem statement, where we again define, once again, we take this from synopsis, but in a very like short sentence. This is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to look at the data I collected in the case through the framework of this and see where we have matches and where we have gaps. For instance, if we use gap analysis. Then the largest part, it's actually data analysis. And it will be different for different types of challenges. And challenge problems, I usually recommend to do cost-effect analysis, heat map, gap analysis, because we don't know even what we usually compare the real situation with the desired situation. This is what we do in a case challenge problem. Challenge dilemma, it's easier because we compare one option and another option. And this is pure comparative analysis, market A and market B, through whatever frameworks we want, through PESTEL or through 5 forces or whatever we believe is the right framework, but we have one market, another market, perfecta, or one candidate, another candidate for the job, and we compare through the same KSA, human capital matrices, whatever matrices we have. And the last one's challenge project. It's any project management approaches. It might be SWOT to TOWS. We made SWOT for these companies, and we see matches of opportunities and strengths, and we convert this to TOWS, and the matches shows us the avenue that we recommend to the company or any recommendations for the industry. But it's very, very important at the end to provide visual summary of the findings, because our clients, again, are not students, they're practitioners. They want to see like, so what? And these are examples from my students who provide summary of whatever their long case analysis. For instance, the first small visuals is they provide summary of comparison, the market of Quebec, the market of Miami, and the market of Toronto. And they see what is the similarity, what is a deal breaker, and you can see that one of them, Toronto, is just no deal breakers and much more positives. And of course, it was for the challenge dilemma. Heat map is an amazing summary for any challenge problem. And again, it might be like whatever visuals, but clients love have like something kind of so what from the case analysis. And the last example of this, it's a comparison of how to enter the new market entry mode, export, wholly owned subsidiary, or licensing. And again, we did comparison through the rubrics, what our client asked us, and this is the summary. But each of them had special part in analysis, and we went through the rubrics of market, how a market will react on this or that market entry. This is the largest part. It's more like similar to what we did in PhDs. And it's somehow resemble question, like in our teaching manual, questions, answers, question, answers, questions, answers, but we have one question, problem. And then we have thorough analysis, and then one answer. This is what case analysis is. And the last one, of course, case recommendations. Again, our goal is to generate value. That's why we always start with the main recommendations. Again, this is the difference with teaching manual, because the client asks us very specific question. Should I go to this market? I shouldn't go to the market. How do I raise this? Who do I do this? Etc., etc. They ask us in the case very specific question, and it was the end of the case. We start our recommendation with an absolutely clear answer to this main question, and I call this main recommendation. And it's provide, we kind of say like, do this. And this is example of what we did in the Kyivstar case. And they say like, oh, the market of Moldova provides the company Kyivstar with stronger match of opportunities matching to Kyivstar strengths than the market of Bulgaria. Very, very clear answer. And then, of course, it's a very kind of high-level answer. And then you need sub-recommendations which describes this, like how you market entry mode, global strategy, position strategy, global HR, whatever you feel, you need sub-recommendations to make your main recommendation work. And it's useful always to include implementation, which might be organizational changes in organizational structure, action plan, budget, HR solution, whatever you believe is relevant for your case. These three components I strongly recommend, but inside you do whatever is you found on your, of course, case analysis. It must come, main recommendation, always come from these visuals. You see, this visual showed us that in this, Venn diagram, one option is better. This is our main recommendations. Or heat map showed us that the last column is more green than any other. Okay, maybe we recommend this one. Or licensing in the last example, licensing is visually much better than exporting and wholly owned subsidiary. This would be our main recommendation. But of course, to make it happen, we recommend much more. And I recommend to write our recommendations as a first kind of the title, which is kind of like, okay, we recommend this as a title kind of your recommendation. And then you provide one paragraph where you connect your recommendation with two case analysis and you show why you recommended this, and you can use maybe sometimes data from your case, and you maybe like magnified some data what you found, and you say like considering this and that, these are that's matching into this recommendation from your case analysis. And this is all about case consulting report or consulting manual. Any questions about this before I move to the last? It's how we submit this. Yes, Connie, and I just put on pause, so please ask question. Connie, you're mute.
I have three quick ones. Are you using only business, or do you include NGOs, not-for-profits, and other organizations?
Yes, and yes. I include all of them. I have exactly like who is your client. I had very good case written by my student from what is this master in so she learned how to be political science and diplomat, something like this, global affairs, and the case was how to help Colombians to invest in the living abroad in America, to invest their money back to Colombia. She reached out the congresswoman in Colombia, and she said, I am a master student from Northeastern University. I am thrilled to participate in consulting case, making your consulting case competition, because I am driven with a dream to become, to work with politics and government, and I am Colombian. Would you please give me interview? And this is a topic I am driven with. And the whole case was about bringing this money back to, which was government. Non-profit, it's a very popular case. Absolutely, very popular. So whatever is yours.
The second question, and I'm sorry to take up space, but if we publish with this, where does the copyright lay? Because if we're selling it to the company and we're publishing it in the journal, is the journal taking copyright, or are we retaining it? Where does that lie with the company because they paid for it?
This is a good question, because we're doing I do this for free. I'm doing this because this is for me is investment. And I tell students, if you want to put investment, you do something for free until you build trust. The first one you do, if you want to publish, I would recommend do it for free. Or if you want to publish and the company wants to publish, then the company is very interested in making this case published, because it's for them, it's a PR, public relations, brand, etc. Or if you do it for company, for money, then I just don't publish this unless the company wants this. This is what I do.
I'm talking specifically about the consulting report.
It's a good question. Let's talk with the journal. I don't know that. I don't have an answer right now.
In the same regard, can we use the same case to publish it as a consulting case and to publish it as a teaching case with a completely different set of teaching notes and everything? Can we double dip on this? and get an
Very
academic
good.
certification.
I
And
love this. I love the idea. Once again, we are pioneers. We are setting the rules. I love this. And what I love about this journal is that the editor, Stephen Maguire, is very open to any innovative ideas. I think case plus 2 manuals, why not? It might be the good option. How I use consulting cases in my classes as a final project, not for the case discussions, but for the final project when they write their own cases as a final project. This is what I use. I love your idea. We can discuss this with the journal. It's beyond my right now. But it's a very good questions. Let's keep working on this. And Connie, your last question is, yes, number 3 question is.
In your yellow piece at the bottom, I just wondered if it was correct or if there's another journal from JRRI Consulting
It's
Recommendation.
my typo. Absolutely. No.
Okay.
It's the same journal. It's my typo.
I just wasn't sure if you had another recommendation
No.
for it.
No, it's my typo. I will correct this. Okay, all good? And resume.